Hey patrons and everybody on YouTube. In this video, I'll be talking about the Pinto Art Museum and Arboretum. This will also be one of my first videos, I guess, where I'm making my video updates public on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube and you want to learn more about my art, support me on patreon.com/Filipina. So Pinto Art Museum is located in Antipolo, Rizal, and it's a museum that my fiance and I visit regularly. Actually, we've been there about 3 times. And this last time, we were also able to check out the Arboretum. Basically, an Arboretum is a collection of trees. But before I get into the Arboretum, I want to share a few pieces of art that I really enjoy every time we go. So the art museum is made up of 7 galleries. The latest one, Gallery 7, is I think the biggest and the newest gallery at Pinto. In Gallery 1 is one artist that really sticks out to me, and his name is Elmer Borlongan. And I love his art because he has these characters with big eyes and they look kind of mysterious and weird. There's one particular character where they're bald, and this character is prominently featured in different art pieces that he makes. Like this one statue that he made, which is basically this bald dude with big eyes, and his body is a speaker, which just, I'm like, what is this? You know, but it looks cool. There's some mystery to it. Speaking of statues, another one that I like is one by Arturo Sanchez, and this one is called Solitude. And it's an insane statue. It's just basically fiberglass and LED light, and it's this person sitting on a stool looking down, and there's like light coming out of these cracks inside the character or inside the statue, which speaks to me on different levels, especially during the lockdown where you just feel a little bit lonely, but at the same time there's kind of hope because there's still that light shining through the cracks. Another cool statue is by Jerson Sampson. So basically it's this statue with wings, and on top of it is a typewriter, and there's all these words and letters imprinted on the statue, and the title of the statue is Salita, or word, or talk, or speak, I believe, in Tagalog. It's just a really cool statue. You have wings on it, which kind of like shows freedom, and then you have the words and the typewriter, which in the context of now kind of says, you know, freedom of speech and media and all this stuff. So if you ever visit Pinto, you will notice that a lot of art pieces have religious angles and religious themes to it, which makes sense with the Philippines having been colonized by the Spaniards and Catholicism for 3 centuries. And so this is evident in another statue by Jojet Solano. And when I first saw this statue, from far away you think it's some sort of knight with a knight's helmet, but at the same time you look at the body, it looks as if it's a statue of a saint that you see in a church. But if you look really close to the helmet, it's made out of crucifixes and rosary beads, and it looks insane. Kind of has a odd, kind of gives you this vibe of the Knights of the Crusades. And then the helmet kind of looks like, is this person going into battle? But at the same time, it's a saint's body. Another artwork that conveys this kind of balance between religion and reality is this artwork by Mark Justiniani. And so if you're Catholic or even Filipino, you've probably had the Last Supper of Jesus and the disciples painting, you know, in your wall in your kitchen. So this one is kind of a play off the Last Supper painting, but it's made up of people at a gambling table, and these gambling tables are common in ferias or community fairs in the province or even in the city, where people are gambling at these tables. And so it depicts these people, a man in the middle just like Jesus, and then surrounding him are these other men. So the last art piece I want to share with you today is this huge metal carabao pulling this cart full of other things and trinkets. And this installation is by Anton del Castillo, and it's called Artifacts of Memory. I just thought it was cool to see a big, huge metal carabao in the middle of our art museum, and it's just a really beautiful piece. The cart looks wonderful, draped with a whole bunch of different things. One of my favorites for sure. And now, before I go ahead and talk about the Pinto Arboretum, I'm gonna share with you a time lapse of another piece of art that I made. So this one is of one of my favorite plants or vegetables, which is ampalaya, and it kind of made it into some sort of like motivational poster. It basically says, "Be better, but better." So if you haven't seen that on Instagram a few weeks ago, here's the time lapse. finally, to cap off this video, let's talk about Pinto Arboretum. So within the premises of the art galleries is this beautiful garden of a whole bunch of plants and trees and flowers, and it was all basically curated, so to speak, by Ronald Achacoso. And Sir Ronald is a Board of Trustee member with the Philippine Native Plants Conservation Society, or PNP-CSI, and it was he who gave us the tour. And it was beautiful. We saw a whole bunch of different plants and trees, like fig trees with these nice, bright, beautiful fruits. And it turns out balete, which is a very popular, which is a very common tree here in the Philippines and known for its mystery, and some people associate the balete with their spiritual beliefs. Another cool plant was what Sir Ronald called pagong pagong. Not sure if I'm saying it right, but it basically means turtle in Tagalog, because when you look at the leaves of this plant as it grows and kind of wraps around the trunks of these trees, they look like turtle shells. And I did a quick Google search online, and it turns out another name for these kinds of plants are dragon scales, which kind of makes sense too. We saw these kinds of plants called staghorn ferns, and they're in these beautiful huge shapes, and they're shaped exactly almost like the horns of deer and other animals. We saw a species called the screw pine, which Filipinos know to be as pandan. And it turns out there's a whole bunch of different species of pandan. Pandan, if you're not familiar with it, is a popular flavoring in a lot of Filipino desserts and sweets, and in kakanin and so on and so forth. Pandan is actually a whole entire genus of plants that can be found all across the Pacific, mainly because their seeds can float. So over the millennia, pandan trees and plants were able to just spread all over the Pacific because the seeds would just float and then find themselves on a new island and establish there. And in English, they're called screw pine because the leaves kind of twist and turn just like a screw. There was also a beautiful agoho, which at first glance looks like a pine tree, but they can be found not just in the mountains from the Cordillera to the Sierra Madre and in other islands in the Philippines, but they can also be found at the coastline. Sir Ronald showed us some beautiful flowers like the begonias, and there was one particular begonia that had heart-shaped flowers and hairy leaves. It was really beautiful. And for those of you who believe in luck and four-leaf clovers, the Philippines actually has its own four-leaf clover, though it's not actually a clover, it's a fern. And it's an aquatic fern, so that was even more interesting. And on top of that, it's a good source of protein. Most of all, I loved Sir Ronald's vertical garden. And so when you think of vertical gardens, you think of, at elementary school, they have these fences full of herbs, or if you go to like a house or a condominium and they have a vertical garden of these bottles with plants in it, which is great. But this was like a real full-blown natural / human-made vertical garden where Sir Ronald basically just put up all these different kinds of trees and plants that kind of attached on walls and in crevices. So the Pinto Art Museum is open. Check their Facebook page under Pinto Art Museum, or you can email them at pintoartmuseum@yahoo.com. As for the Arboretum, it's closed at the moment. I'm not sure why. Just go ahead and check their Facebook page or send them an email, and you can book an appointment for a tour. It's well worth it. You guys need to check it out. So again, if you found me on YouTube and you like these time lapses, you like my art, or you like these updates, you can see more on my Patreon at patreon.com/Filipina. Other than that, take care and see you in my next update.